All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome to the first CFO South Africa webinar. Great to have you here. I can see there are several people joining us. As you do join us, you'll notice I'm just putting a comment here right at the top of your screen. So go ahead and respond to that. Let us know your role and the organization that you're with. You can do that just by typing in the chat over on the right-hand side of our screen there. So we'll go ahead and wait for some of those responses to come in. That way we'll know that we are live. You can see there's lots of people coming in now. Excellent. Good to have you all here. Perfect. So as you see that question on your screen over in the top right-hand corner, go ahead and let us know your organization and your role, please. Thank you, Georgie. Thanks for getting us started there. Perfect. And Mboyisa, thank you very much as well. This is good news. It means that our webinar is working. Everybody's here. And we are just waiting for one more panelist to join us. But while Shabir is on his way, I thought we could kick things off with a mini introduction. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the slide off of our screen now. So welcome to Brian Groom, who is the FD of Verimark. We then have Tsuzukani Mhlanga, who's the Executive Director and Group Finance and Administration at Italtal Limited. So thank you both for being here today. Another thing I would like to mention is these two CFOs that you see here with us today. They are also nominees for the 2020 CFO Awards, and they fit into the Young CFO category. We know that these two CFOs have very busy diaries and hundreds of people asking them for mentoring and coaching. And we thought to save them a bit of time and to add some value to the CFO community, we can do this in a bigger group setting where everyone has an opportunity to kind of ask a couple of questions. So we'll allow about 10 minutes just before the end of our session here today, where we will go ahead and we'll request some of your questions to come in as well. And Brian, you're welcome to stay on camera as well. Let's have a quick look in our chat. Excellent. Perfect. So lots of comments coming through there. Thank you very much for all of those. So I think just to kick things off, we can see that both Tsu and Brian are very, very smartly dressed this morning. So I think to just start with a very important and a very difficult question, is it business at the top and a party at the bottom? Let's start with you, Tsu. Okay, looks like two may be frozen there. Brian, are you still with us? There we go. We can see you coming back on camera. And there we go. Perfect. So tell us, Brian, is it business at the top and party at the bottom? Are you still wearing PJ pants?
No, wearing a pair of jeans.
Okay, good stuff. And Tsu, if you're still with us as well, you're welcome to just start your camera so we can see you as well. So I think just to kick things off here, let's start with one of our first questions here. So Brian, just tell us a little bit more. What made you choose a career in finance?
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so I think basically, from quite a young age, I was always wanted to follow the entrepreneurial route. And yeah, I think that the starting point is, you speak to most businessmen or women, and they generally have some sort of finance background, whether it's economics or something that's kind of business related. So yeah, I thought the starting point would be to kind of go towards a BCom and then see where things went from there. So yeah, I think it started with more of an entrepreneurial flair, and you always want to know, for example, how your numbers work and got to have the basics to run a business. So yeah, mine was quite simple and easy. I always wanted to have kind of start my own business and run my own business in the beginning. So basically the easiest way for that was just to go through more from an accounting side. I did accounting in school, and yeah, it was interesting. So it was definitely probably the starting blocks was just to have some sort of inspiration to do my own business and want to know how the numbers worked.
Okay, cool. Very cool. So, Brian, I'm really going to spoil you at the moment because it looks like Tsu has been disconnected. Typical, as you run a webinar, there's going to be some internet challenges. And I know Shabir Khan is also on his way and he's struggling to get in. So right now it's the Brian Groom show. Cool.
Yeah,
Let's.
sure. Right, throw the questions my way.
Okay, here they come. Brian, so obviously you mentioned that you were interested from an entrepreneurship perspective, and that's what led you into finance. But tell us a little bit more about your sort of academic journey and route, and why did you follow that route or that path?
So mine was it's fairly simple, pretty straightforward. So I went after school. I did accounting at school. I thought, let me go study BCom accounting. I went to UKZ in Maritzburg. And I started off again from the start. It wasn't really, it wasn't my end goal from the start to become a CA. It was more, let's do a BCom. I did the BCom, and then within so how it worked back then is that your first semester was basically everyone did the same BCom, and then second semester you then decided if you want to take on accounts, the second part of accounts. So for me it was quite easy at that point in time. It was still similar to your kind of matric accounting. So I went and did the second accounts, and decided from there to steer my direction to BCom accounting. I still had quite a big interest in economics. So from there it was kind of it was playing between the two. And then obviously second year came, and then things got very interesting. Deferred tax came about, and from there then I decided to pursue the BCom accounting and follow the CA route. I think where we were quite lucky is that you would have quite a few of the big four coming to visit the campus and things like that, and you got to chat with a lot of guys that were doing it, and could kind of give you an idea of what your future would be about, and they give you a bit of insight into audit. And so I made a decision then in my second year to pursue the BCom accounts, to go the CA route. Obviously at that point in time I didn't actually realize how tricky and difficult it would be. And then so went through from there, did the BCom accounts. I didn't follow the honors route because again, for me, it was more about just getting into articles. I signed. I was quite lucky. I signed a contract with Deloitte in my second year.
Okay.
And then so went from there, and then obviously first time passes through each of the years. Again, I think you find honors quite tricky, but you realize what it's like to juggle a couple different subjects at once. And then so then from there I went from finished fourth year, and then started my articles with Deloitte in Mhlanga or Durban. And then very very interesting, exciting experience. First time working, you kind of get a little bit about the working world, and you're very new into it. And so it's a very steep learning curve at the start. And then as you get into it, you start realizing, you start learning about different businesses, and this is when it gets exciting. So you spend the 4 years studying up to that point, and then once you're there, you actually got quite a variety of knowledge to then use, and you get the practical experience. And so that's when it gets exciting. You actually get to start applying everything and start seeing how businesses work, which is obviously where this is my end goal, is understand how businesses work to be able to do my own thing one day. I went from there, and so basically finished articles, and luckily I got selected to go through to America for what we call the JIT program. And I went through to America I was there for about 6 months, and then got to do a bit of traveling there. So it was all an exciting journey, and then from there then into the working world when I came back.
Wow. Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. So I was just having a quick glance of your LinkedIn profile. So we've obviously spoken about the experience that you had in the US through Deloitte. But tell us a little bit more about your professional journey. I see that you've obviously been at Verimark now for just under 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And then prior to that, you were over at Car Service City. So tell us about that journey from Deloitte, articles, Car Service City, to now Verimark being the youngest FD of a listed company in South Africa. So basically, after articles, I did the JIT program. I went to America. So anyone that does get the opportunity to go and travel and work while you're doing it, definitely do it. It opens your eyes up, because it's a journey. You learn to be in a different area, a different place. You got to learn. You got to be quick on your feet. So it gives you that ability to adapt. Learn to adapt quite quickly, which everyone puts on their CVs. Yes.
So yeah, following that, I came back, and then it was a choice of, do I stay, because I was originally from Durban. Do I stay in Durban, or do I look for other opportunities? So what happens that also, again, through Deloitte, there was a contract that opened up at Standard Bank. So I moved up to Joburg. I did a contract with Standard Bank, SAP implementation program for about 4 or 5 months. And while I was busy doing that program, obviously I knew that the banking world wasn't for me. So I realized then to start look for another opportunity. And find an opportunity fairly quickly with Car Service City, or Car City Holdings as the holding company is called. And this was quite an interesting journey. So it was probably the first step in the right direction. I worked with a company that was very entrepreneurial, fairly new. It was sort of like a startup, but a franchise company. And it was very interesting to get involved in that, because the CEO is very entrepreneurial. Learned a lot from him. He gave a lot of room to work with. That was a starting point where I learned around franchising, learned the application of the accounts. Obviously auditing, you see it from a different side. And
Sure.
then once you're actually busy doing it, you can actually see kind of what everyone is looking at. And I got a good opportunity to get involved with a bit of warehousing, franchising. And then from then that's probably when the biggest hurdle for me came in. Is that at that point in time, the FD at the time for Car Service City, he decided to move on and pursue a couple of his own personal venture. And then I got offered the role, but previously before that, I'd been looking elsewhere. And it came to a decision. I can stay with the smaller company and then kind of work my way through into hopefully the FD position, or alternatively I could maybe take a lateral move to another company, which was then at the time Verymark, and go into an FM position in Verymark, but obviously for a listed company. So I think sometimes where my career journey became interesting was at that point, is that you make a decision, and then again obviously being offered the FD position in Car Service City, I turned it down to move rather to an FM position in Verymark. Just based on the fact is that at the time it was a listed company, and there's a much bigger career growth from that perspective. I'd learned quite a lot from the franchising background. Now it's time to kind of wet my feet into a new type of avenue, retail, which was obviously very interesting to me. And since then I've been with Verymark. I entered the FM, and I was there for probably about 3-4 months. And at that point in time, the FD decided that he was also going to part ways and go overseas. And I got thrown in a bit of the deep end. And at the time, my CEO just said, to take on the position, just go into the acting position, just keep things up afloat. And I suppose this was the first opportunity to actually show what you can do. So I mean, ultimately, I want to say I'm fairly lucky to that that kind of happened. But then given the time, once you get that opportunity, you got to make the most of it. And then within 6 months, I think I did a fairly decent job. And then I got promoted into the actual FD position and been there ever since.
Okay, very cool. I guess coming from Durban and being thrown right into the deep end was super helpful, knowing how to swim as well, eh? Cool. Too, I can see you back with us, because it was turning into the Brian Groom show for a second.
Technical difficulties, like all of a sudden. Apologies for that.
To happen. It wouldn't be a webinar if there weren't any technical issues.
True that.
Cool. So too, Brian was just sharing a little bit about his journey. So we started off with what made him choose a career in finance. So we'd love to hear from you as well.
For me, it was either finance or medicine. So the decision actually got made for me when I was pretty young. I hear from people that tell me that I think when I was around 3 years old, I got taken into a delivery room, a maternity delivery room. So as I saw a baby come out, apparently I ran away screaming. So that put paid to that dream. So the next least traumatizing career for myself was finance. So that's how I found myself. I always loved numbers. Found it very logical, and it made sense. So that's why then I decided to rather go into finance rather than medicine.
Okay. I thought you were going to say you went into the maternity ward or in the baby ward and you started counting all the babies. And that's how you got into finance. No.
No.
Okay, perfect. I've just received a private message here in the chat asking about the network connection. So I'm not sure if everybody's having a bit of an unstable connection here or if it's just an individual. It could just be the connection on your side. A suggestion would just be to close as many tabs as possible so that Zoom can consume all of the bandwidth. Cool. Tu, I've got a couple more questions for you. So in terms of your sort of finance journey, what academic route did you follow and why did you follow that path?
Okay. So I did BCom Accounting Sciences undergrad with University of Pretoria. Following that, I did my honors CTA with UKZN. That route, I did the distance learning, so I was working at the same time. Following that, I decided to do my articles through TOP, Training Outside Public Practice. And the reason why I did that, I just didn't like auditing while I was in undergrad. So I did my TOP articles with EdCon. So that's in terms of, the academic journey, that's up until qualifying as a CA, that's the route I took.
Okay, perfect. And now there's going to be a bit of pressure for you here too. I'm not sure if you can see the chat, but I see Julia Maludzi Ramagoma is in the house and she says that you her expert. So
yes,
Julia, now's your time to expose too. Now's your time. Let us know. Cool. Tu, one more question for you. So you've had a very interesting career. So tell us a little bit more about some of those different roles that you've been in. I mean, from your time over at the top accreditation or trainee, you were then at Pambani and Alex Core. You did some consulting. You were over at Ascension Properties as well, and then obviously now you at Italtal. So tell us a little bit more about that journey, some of the highlights amongst it as well.
Yeah. So after top articles, I wanted to go into mining. So the reason why I chose mining, I found it like to be a very gritty industry. So I was just always interested in that type of industry, like a bolts and nuts type of industry, how you get something from the ground, manufacture it to the point where you actually sell it. And I went to Pembani, which is, where I was working with Julia. And I chose Pembani specifically because it was a small company.
Yes.
And I felt that in terms of the breadth of experience that I would get at a smaller company, you can't really compare it to a bigger company. And I felt straight out of articles that I needed to make sure that my experience is more wide. So, get involved in operations and not just be, on the finance side.
Okay.
So after Pembani, I did a bit of consulting, still with Pembani as well. And then I went into Alexco, which is also a mining company. So Pembani was on coal, Alexco diamonds, so just a different form of carbon. And Alexco was, I would say, very instrumental in terms of my personal development. In that the mine is in the middle of nowhere in the desert, on the west coast, close to the Namibian border. And, to be put in a place where, the primary language of communication is Afrikaans, first of all. And I'm not Afrikaans speaking. I can understand it, but I can't speak it. And you're in the middle of nowhere. There's no family. It builds amazing reserves of resilience. More than you actually that you're capable of. So there, I was a CFO of a mining company, also quite small. And I stayed there for a few years until I got requested to help set up the Joburg office.
Okay.
Stayed there for a while, and then so mining I was happy with, but then I felt okay, I now need to get more experience in terms of corporate. So I got an opportunity to join Ascension Properties, which was a listed company. So I'd never
Yes.
had listed company experience.
Okay.
And then I joined them there and then stayed with Ascension for a while, which is property, which is also a different industry. And then I kind of circled back after Ascension. Then sorry about that. Then I came to Italtal, which is retail, which is where I actually did, the retail space is where I did my articles.
Okay.
So Italtal, also it's a big, small company, I like to say. Very kind of, like a family feel. It is, the majority shareholder is a family.
Sure.
Our chairperson is the founding member.
Was
But
that
at
him
the
trying
same
to phone
time,
you now?
it actually was. I'm sure he's asking me. He's also gonna complain and say, "Too, you're spending too much of my money." It's always what he complains about. You just spend his money. So, um, yeah. So I mean, it's a very, very interesting company and experience. Still on the listed. We're listed. But at the same time, we're a vertically integrated company. So, just, learning, the wider business, how business works and how to maneuver all the regulations that we have to. So, I mean, we've got, because we own quarries, we own factories, on top, in addition to the stores.
Yeah.
All the legislation that's involved, kind of balancing, all the capital requirements that the business needs. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey, I must say.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds like a very diverse journey as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now our next question. There's no politicians that are in this conversation today, so we don't want any politician-styled answers here either. Next up, tell us, Brian, maybe we'll start with you. Let us know about one of your most challenging days on the job, and what were some of the lessons learned there. And then we'll come to you next, too.
Sure.
Sure. Where to start? Yeah. So
BC, before Corona or during Corona.
BC. Yeah. So. So I think just in my current position, obviously you get a lot of difficult days. Sometimes different different reasons for the day. Sometimes technical, sometimes a little bit more in terms of the personal space and stuff like that. But I think one day that sticks out for me was probably about 2 years ago. So obviously being in the retail space, December is generally your peak period. And that year I hadn't taken much leave during the year, so the family decided we wanted to go to Mozambique for the Christmas break. But during that period of time, literally about 2 weeks before that, we didn't have a logistics manager, so warehouse manager. So that reports into me. So that became my problem for about 2 to 3 months. So during the period of time that I wasn't there, or that he wasn't there, I was taking over the role and just managing it. We had a lot of our shipments were delayed over that Christmas period, and so during that time we had a large consignment of toys that was coming through, and that needed to be out in trade in a very short period of time. So anyway, long story short, I had to go through to Mozambique, but I ended up spending pretty much the entire day on my phone. So to first of all, as soon as you cross the border, you got to make sure that your connection's fine. So I found myself running around Mozambique trying to find a Vodacom SIM card that I could then connect in and then transfer the calls to that card, so that I could be in constant contact with the DC to make sure that everything that had arrived, everyone knew what to do and how to get everything out. Because in retail, you've literally got a couple of days to get everything out. If you don't get it out in time, then you're gonna miss the December, the peak trade, which is for us is our biggest month. So I think from there it was quite tricky, because now you're juggling the movement of stock, you're juggling for example, the communication with the different retailers, you're juggling the communication with your delivery companies, you're managing teams remotely, which again, I think now, given what you're dealing with, post during Corona, it kind of makes it a little bit of preparation for myself earlier.
Yes.
So I think a couple of the lessons learned is that you obviously need to make sure that you got a very strong team. So with everyone that you work with, that they know what they're doing. You need to make sure communication is critical, because obviously where we find there was a bit of a struggle is that when communication known and not everyone knew the same information, it made it quite tricky to execute. So I think so. A couple of the lessons learned is just make sure that everyone's on the same page. You do need to take time for yourself, no matter what your position is. But just make sure that everyone is kind of in line with what you need to do, and that they know what needs to be executed and how to execute it. I think probably the most critical out of all of it is make sure that you develop your team, so that if you're not there, you can operate 100%. So I think the biggest learning curve is just from then on, I make a quite critical part of my day. Make sure that there's always upskilling involved with everyone that I'm involved in, because obviously for me now, I've been at the company for almost 5 years, and so I've learned a lot over the 5 years. So it's part of the knowledge of what I have now to everyone else. And now I've dealt with those critical times, and I know how to deal with those those peak December trades where you're in a constant rush, and just make sure that everyone's cool, calm, and collected, because as soon as you panic, then your decision making abilities goes out the window a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, can you imagine? Wow. Okay, so lots of lessons learned there. Cool. Tu, we're going to come to you next. I don't know if you saw the awesome comment there from Tebogo in the chat saying that you're a real inspiration. So great to have you here. And Shabir, we won. We got it right. Yeah. Let's give Shabir a clap there. Thanks for your persistence. I know it was a bit glitchy getting in here, so good to have you here.
No, thanks, John.
Sure thing. So we're going to hear from Tu next, and then I'm going to backtrack a little bit with some of our questions for you as well, Shabir.
No problem.
So toughest day as a CFO. I think it's actually been more recent for myself during this COVID-19 crisis. Just the different level of discussion we've had to have as a business, and how as a CFO you kind of in the times now where the survival of the business is at stake. You get pushed into the forefront, in terms of, how much cash do we have? How long can it last? What do we do to make sure that the business survives, and that, our people don't suffer? So, it's been, yes, we've been working from home, but it's been long hours every day. And it's been Monday to Sunday for several weeks, but what I've learned from that is, if you know what you're working towards, and how important it is, and I mean, here we're talking about, preserving jobs, making sure that, our people's livelihoods are protected at all costs. If you're working towards that purpose, you tap into a reserve of strength that you didn't even know you had. So, I mean, before that, I didn't know, I could go weeks on end, with 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep max,
Wow.
every day. So,
Crazy.
It's been quite a learning that, that, where I think is my endpoint, I cannot go for any further. You actually have, the ability to do more than what you thought. Yeah. So that's been my biggest learning.
Yeah. So lots of resilience and grit learned in the challenging times.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks so much, too. So Shabir, when we kick things off here today, I was asking everybody what made them choose a career in finance. So let's hear from you.
No, thanks so much, John, for the invitation. And I think as part of being your first webinar, I think it was bound to have some uh, hiccups along the way.
Yes, that's
Uh,
it. That's the way it goes, though, isn't it?
yeah, no, it's part of the history in the making. So my decision for choosing a career in finance was quite a simple one. First of all, an academic career was, I mean, it was quite an obvious choice for me. My dad being a school teacher, he sort of instilled the discipline of education amongst all his kids.
Okay.
And he made us see the importance of education from a very early age. The reason for choosing a career in finance or becoming a chartered accountant, I mean, that for me was quite a simple one. In school, I was quite good at maths. For some reason, the numbers just stayed with me. And
Hmm.
in deciding a career, I think for me, the accountancy profession allows just such diversity in terms of career choice, in terms of relevancy, in terms of, just in terms of the business field. And even if you look at all three panel members today, we all come from quite diverse backgrounds. Just listening to Sue as a Gorin. And so, it's we're all trying to apply our profession in fields where we can add value to. So for me, I think for me, that was quite a straightforward choice. It was a choice where I could add value in some way to society or into business.
Okay, perfect. And then obviously we can see that you've been with the DTI for 7 years now, and you're with AGSA for 9 years prior to that. So we're also talking about some of the challenges and the toughest day on the job, and the lessons learned during that process.
So yeah, my career, if I can sort of, it's in like two halves. I
Yeah.
spent the first part of my career a lot in audit, and I think most of our sort of earlier grooming in terms of our training comes from auditing. So I spent a large part of my life in auditing. I was at the Auditor General for a few years. But I think as part of the training, audit provides you a good insight into understanding financial management, risk management. And I think it's just part of the training. Some people would possibly follow a career in auditing for their entire life. But I think auditing provides a good base in whichever career you decide to choose thereafter. And within the Auditor General, I mean, it was quite a nice position because, I mean, you had the opportunity to be able to see the value that you were bringing into, although from an audit side, but in terms of service delivery, in terms of making a difference to the people. So within those years, I mean, I rose into the ranks. I was a senior engagement manager on a portfolio of audits.
Okay.
At the time, we had the contract for the United Nations, and I was a sort of the lead manager on a lot of those United Nations assignments. So it
Wow.
provided me a lot of exposure, but also it made me see that life within the public sector is not that bad at all. You can actually see yourself making a difference. And then from there, I mean, I moved into finance, and I mean, the last 7 years at the DTI has been phenomenal. I mean, I've literally seen myself grow, being a young CFO at the time to where I am today. It's just be able to see how you're able to add value in an economy which had so many ups and downs. I mean, since I joined, I mean, at the time we were coming out of the 2008 financial crisis and trying to pick up this economy to a point where we could see FDI coming into the country, seeing sectors growing, seeing jobs coming into the marketplace, and then we get hit with Corona now. So
Yeah.
it's been a very exciting journey. But in that journey as well, I've sort of moved a lot towards other roles as well. So within the DTI space as well, I mean, from a leadership, from a governance, we've moved to a space where with the national macro reorganization of the state, the DTI has has merged with the former Economic Development,
Okay.
and we actually call the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition.
Mm-hmm.
And in this merger, we actually have 17 entities reporting into us as the shareholder department. So my role has sort of evolved into a much larger one where just from a financial management, oversight, leadership, governance. So I sit on a number of boards. I sit on a large number of audit committees. I chair a number of risk audit. It's just to ensure that, from a shareholder perspective, that a
Yeah.
large number of our entities are embracing the changes within the financial sector, but also there's financial discipline, financial management, improved audit outcomes, and improved service delivery.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, is that it's been a phenomenal journey, and I've also, together with CFO South Africa, from the first time I became a CFO, I've been interviewed by you guys. So
Yes.
we've been together on a nice journey.
Yeah. Very much so. And tell us about some of the lessons that you've learned, or the toughest day on the job over the last few years.
The lessons are. There's a large number of lessons. And
Tell us your
it's just
top one, the
my top
biggest
one.
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest lesson. It's possibly it's probably leadership and managing and embracing leadership. So even within that space, one of the earliest things I've realized, as you come into a role like this, you might have the technical knowledge, the technical background, the strategic ability, but it's all about managing teams. And that for me has been the biggest lesson. We're all successful in our individual rights, but we wouldn't be successful without a successful team. So it's all about embracing and bringing along a team that can support and nurture you as you go along. So for me, I think that has been the biggest lesson in terms of leadership.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've started a poll. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a list of options there. And if you can't see it, there's like a little red tab on the side of your screen, and it's got 3 white vertical dots. So go ahead and click on that, and there should be a little pop-out. And then you'll see a poll there. So for our panelists, you can't respond to this. This is not for you. This is for all of our attendees here today. If you can see that, and if someone can just let me know in the chat if you can see that. If not, I'll try and get that up for us again. So we've spoken a little bit about our journey into finance, some of the sort of challenges that we encountered along the way. And Sue, I don't know if you can see, there's a question there in the chat from Rotondwa asking about where you did your articles. You can just respond in the chat if you like. So tell us, in the world of a CFO, a young CFO rather, how difficult is it to get buy-in and to get the respect of your more senior, we don't want to call them old because that's a bit disrespectful, but your more seasoned executives? How easy is it to get buy-in and respect from them? Let's start with the rose amongst the thorns. So Tu, let's come to you. You might be on mute. Yeah, you are on mute. There we go.
Cool. All right. How difficult it is to get buy-in from the most seasoned executives? I think it all depends on one's approach. So yes, as a young person, when you come into an organization, most of the times the perception is like, this young whippersnapper, what can she tell me, but what I found quite helpful for myself is, coming in, but also respecting the fact that they've been there for years and respecting the experience that they have. And, coming with the attitude or a spirit to say, I'd wish to just tap into your brain or tap into your experience and find out how you got to where you are. I think, for me, I've seen how, if you frame, your questions like that, people are much more inclined to share And in that way, they actually see you as a team member, as someone, that they can share with, and, that can tap into. So, and, that kind of builds, a bit of a rapport over time. And yeah, that's how I've chosen to approach it. It's worked so far, but I mean, it won't always, there's some that, that just will never, gel with you, and that's okay, but, we'll treat each other, with the professional courtesy that comes with our positions, and, and also that, what's also important is, to come with, a spirit to say, I'm here to support, especially as finance, you're very much there to provide support to the business. And I think, once they realize that you're not there as a threat, they're much more open to work with you, and you find that, they tend to consult you a whole lot more going forward. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Thank you too. Shabir, let's hear from you next. You're on mute as well. There we go.
So one of the things that I've learned quite quickly at the start was, if you do not build relationship, and I mean quality relationships within the broader executive team, you weren't going to succeed as a CFO.
Yes.
And I think for me, the key ingredient as part of being successful is actually building quality relationships.
Yeah.
At the start, when I got at the DTI, one of the first things that, the minister, when he met me, he says, Shabir, how do we move from being a very successful department to being something that excellent? And he says, how do we move from being just a very standard, optimal in terms of financial management towards getting a clean audit? And he asked me, what do you need from me for us to get that clean audit? And I just told him one thing, Minister, I just need your support in driving the clean audit for the department. I will put together the strategy and how we get there, but I just needed that leadership from you. And for me, in building that relationship with the minister who was behind me in driving this clean audit strategy, made a huge difference in us improving financial management, improving financial discipline, improving service delivery within the department. So I think for me that was quite key.
Okay. Very cool. So it's almost like a reverse, because they approached you and asked you. So you must have been demonstrating really awesome leadership, or they saw something in you to kind of turn the table.
Yeah. So, it's quite, so prior to me joining the DTI at the time, I was actually one of the DTI was actually one of my clients when I was at the Auditor General, and in those engagements with sort of the oversight bodies and with Parliament, the portfolio committees, the SCOPA, and the public accounts committees, I've actually met the minister then, and during those meetings we've engaged. And when I eventually got into the department, it made it a lot easier because they understood from where my background, where I came from. And literally it was just a simple thing of, okay, where do you take us from now? What's the next level? And how do you improve the overall performance?
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Shabir. Brian, tell us about your journey.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so I think no matter how you look, I think as a young CFO coming into the business world, I think you're always going to get a bit of resistance. I think you're kind of going against the grain. I think in my position, mine was probably a little bit worse, because I think I was 27 when I kind of entered the CFO position, and then was 28 when I was actually appointed as the actual CFO of Verimark. So I mean, given that, I mean, I was considerably younger than the majority of the other CFOs that had worked with listed companies. So I think also being on a listed company, you got the shareholders that are looking into this, and for example, how do they take such a young person coming through into such a high position within the company. So I think my advice for anyone else that's in that type of position is that I agree with what the other panelists had to say in terms of relationships. You got to make sure that you've got the right relations with everyone. But I'd say just from a personal perspective is that you need to produce the results. So I think the only way that you get people to trust in what you're doing and actually buy into you as a person and into that position is that you got to produce the results, and you got to do it fairly quickly. So I mean, you get few opportunities to prove your position. I think you got to take advantage of it, and you got to make the most of the position that you're in. I think that's probably the number one way that you're going to get people's respect, is that you need to show that you can actually do the job, and you're not just there, and that you haven't been brought in for alternative reasons, and that you are the best in that position for your company. I think once you do that, then I think you get the buy-in, you get the respect of the fellow executives. I know very much our board at the time, we've had some very high-profile individuals that sat on our board, and that first conversation is critical. You got to make sure that you're speaking, you have the right language, and that they're hearing what you're saying. You need to learn quickly on how to change your approach with different individuals. You got to be able to be very adaptable in different situations. But you also got to make sure that you prove your worth to these individuals. So I mean, whether you're looking at an external board or whether you're looking at your current executive team that you're working with, coming through as a youngster, everyone, you don't really have, or youngster for lack of better words, is that you don't really have that experience. And a lot of people, you've been brought into kind of a working environment where experience. I mean, you look at any roles where, for example, anyone out there that's looking to find a job, the number one point on what they're asking for is how many years experience do you have. So it's very difficult, for example, when you're working in a world where experience is absolutely critical, and it is over time. But the thing is, I think the one opportunity that we get as youngsters is that you've got a fresh outlook on how things work. You can adapt to something very quickly, and so I think my number one is I agree with what everyone else has said. Relations are very critical, and for you to continue in your position, to continue to strive as a company, you got to develop relations, and you got to have very good relations with your peers. I mean, especially with your CEO, you got to work well together. And you got to deliver the goods. Ultimately, as a CFO, you're there to make sure that the numbers are right and that everything's operating. And then once you develop those relationships, then I think then it opens up the rest of the company to you, and then you can get your hands stuck in everywhere else. And I think the learning opportunities is absolutely critical from there. So take advantage of it. That's probably it. I think it's going to be very difficult. I think every person is in a different situation. And it also depends who you work with, because again, I've been very lucky with my CEO, who's been very helpful, and from the beginning, kind of blew my trumpet in terms of the things that I've done, and he made it a lot easier for everyone to kind of accept me in my position. And I think that from him was a very good leadership move to make sure that everyone had buy-in into me, and to ultimately I'm also part of the company.
Sure. And in terms of blowing your own trumpet, we can all see the medals behind you, Brian. We can see all of them.
So it's not done on purpose.
All good. I see we've got about 8 minutes left, and I don't want to run too far over time here. I noticed Ishmael Mabasa and Tashinga Katuruza, you've both requested to speak. Can I ask that you just go ahead and type your questions in the chat rather, and then we'll get around to some of those. And also, if you haven't already responded to the poll, please go ahead and do so now. We'll share the results shortly. Okay, I can see a couple more questions coming in here. Thank you very much. Cool. So let's just go with some rapid fire answers here, so we can get through a few of these as quickly as we can. If I was to ask all of you for some advice that you would give to some of our aspiring and aspirational potential CFOs in the room, what would that be? What are 2 or 3 top tips? Let's start with Shabita this time. Let's alternate.
So I think if you look at where we are and within the current context, for me, it's all about creating a new narrative. I think as we all return back to the office, it's not going to be work as usual. So it's important that as we begin the new future, we embrace a lot of the things that we've seen and we've learned. And for me, one of the key things is about embracing some of the things that we've seen in the past, which we can correct in the future. And one of the things that I would say is maybe focus on things like small things like gender equality. You know, making sure that even in the boardroom, we're adequately represented by the demographics of the country. But I think one of the good things that I've learned is networking, and I think even looking at the CFO South Africa platform, networking is very.
You teed it up perfectly. Thanks, Shabir. I don't even need to say it anymore.
But it's not just about networking; it's also about maintaining those networks, because this is the only time you get an opportunity to reflect, to learn, and I mean just reflecting on what has happened and where we are at the moment, and what can we take, what are the positives that can be taken out of this. So for me, my advice is network, and maintain those networks.
Okay, nice, thank you. Brian, anything else you want to say about CFO South Africa and the networking there? But I mean, before that, obviously give us your tips as well. Should we go to Brian, and then we'll come to you too?
Okay,
Cool.
yeah, so from my side is, I 100% agree. I think networking is absolutely critical. I think the relationships that you build, and again, I 100% agree. It's not about just networking once. It's about maintaining those relationships. And again, you don't know when that connection is going to come through, and when you're actually going to need some advice, or for example, just where they can assist in some way. And also just in terms of just getting, just making sure that you're understanding everything that's going on. I think as a CFO, you need to know what's happening in different industries. You need to know what's happening in your current profession. So I think it's just a nice way to stay connected. It's all about learning every day, something new. So I think CFO South Africa has done a great job in at least allowing all the CFOs to be connected. So well done. But tips for kind of upcoming CFOs and youngsters. I just want to say get your hands dirty. Don't be afraid to take on this task. I think sometimes some tasks you think is a little bit below you, but sometimes those are the tasks that people are actually watching out for. So something as simple as get involved in a stock count. Get involved in doing a bit of the dirty work. You never know who's watching, and you never know who's actually looking out to see what you're doing. Sometimes you're putting your head down and you're doing the best that you can do at your job, and sometimes people are watching. So sometimes take a bit of a risk. Try get involved in something that you might not originally get involved in. You never know, you might actually be good at what you're doing, and people could be watching different avenues. I think the CFO route is one route to go, but as a upcoming CA, you're not just limited to becoming a CFO. So I think there's different options out there. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, get involved in everything, and don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no stupid question, because ultimately the more that you know, the better position you're in to move forward.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, from my side, I'd say just some advice to aspiring finance executives. I think what's important is never to compromise on your values as a person. Another thing is staying the course. Resilience will stand you in good stead. It's not easy, but the rewards, far outweigh the pain sometimes that you have to go through. And lastly, what my other two colleagues have mentioned: relationships. You never know where you find yourself in life, and there's no one who is beneath you. There's no one. You treat everyone as you would wish to be treated.
Yes.
Our journey on this earth is not one that's done in isolation. it's with other people. So, you know, relationships are actually what give the spice to life, and you need to nurture those. In you know, be intentional about it.
Sure.
And you won't regret it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, too. I think that's a really nice way to kind of sum up our talk here today. So Brian, Shabir, and Tu, I really want to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. I'd also like to thank all of our attendees for joining as well. As we mentioned, this is the first of several webinars that will be happening over the next few months. So, and again, congratulations to Brian, Shabir, and Tu for being nominated as some of the country's top CFOs in 2020, and all falling into the young CFO category as well. If you're interested in more information on that, you can go to cfoawards.co.za. Then you'll also notice over on the right-hand side of our screen, there is the response to our poll. So we can see 51% of us said that CFOs should be 35 to bring fresh blood to the organization's leadership. 47% of us said that 45 to balance necessary experience with energy and vision. And apparently there's 1% of older and more experienced people on the call, because they said that you need to be 55 so that you've already put in the hard yards. So you'll see in a moment here, I'm just going to go ahead and share a quick slideshow. I know that some other questions did come up in the chat. So what we can do is we'll be writing a post-event article, which will probably be live in, don't want to put the team under too much pressure, let's say Monday at the latest. And some of those questions that were in there, we'll see how we can weave them in with some of the responses from Tu, Shabir, and Brian. But let's take a quick look here. So, of course, this morning we all attended the How to Be an Awesome CFO Under 40. Our next session, and Brian, Tu, and myself, I'm just going to ask us if we can just turn our videos off so that it's not blocking the URL at the bottom right-hand corner. There we go. It should be towards the top of your screen. There we go. Perfect. So we can see on the 11th of June, we've got a really awesome webinar with our partners over at Caseware Africa. They've just launched a really cool dude, Mr. Rabazotti again. So we'll see on the 11th of June, Ninki Kruger from Caseware Africa is going to be sharing a little bit more information about their really, really cool new interim reporting tool. So that's definitely one you want to attend. And then if you're tired of mundane tasks and you're sick and tired of doing things manually, this is the session that you want to attend. So we can see on the 18th of June at 10 o'clock in the morning, we've got Rudolf Janssen van Rensburg from Treasury One. He's going to be sharing some top tips, how you can transform your life, work smarter, not necessarily harder, but streamline a lot of your processes. So again, I'd like to thank our awesome CFOs under 40 for joining our call here today. And thank you all to all of our attendees. Thank you for being a part of the CFO South Africa community. Thank you for joining us here today. And we look forward to seeing you in future sessions as well. You'll notice if you look at the chat now, tomorrow's also posted a URL or a link where you can go ahead and register for all of the other upcoming webinars. We'd also love to hear some of your feedback as well. So you can respond to the mail that I sent out to everyone. And again, thank you all for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. And have an awesome weekend. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.